Hi everyone, so today's card is a double display octagonal shutter card. So this is what it looks like. Open like that, and if you see it from the top. Now this card was actually requested. Someone had seen, I think Mixed Up Crafts had done this with a die set, and someone had asked me could I do it without a die set. So this is the card without the die set. Now originally when I saw the video I thought, oh my goodness, I saw the thumbnail for it and thought, oh, I think I'll just pass on that one. It looked a bit tricky. But then when I had the request I was like, okay, let me look into this, let me see if this is tricky or not. And actually it wasn't too bad. I made one version and then worked out a much easier way and neater way of doing it. Yeah, and came up with this one. So if you've got octagonal dies, just normal dies, not necessarily one that makes this card, if you've just got octagonal dies, then you might want to use them if you've got one that fits. I do give you tips throughout the video as to how to, you know, make sure you don't cut bits off and whatever, but it does make it easy for the mat and layering, because some of my mat and layering is quite shocking. Yeah, not mentioning this corner here. But yeah, you can do it's better, it's definitely easier and neater with dies. But for those of you who don't have dies, this is completely made without dies. There's not a single die being used to make this card. Okay, so it is possible. But yeah, so hopefully you enjoy it. So let's get into it. Okay, so for this card you need quite a few pieces. It's quite involved, so I shall go through them as we come to them. I think that's probably the best thing to do. So let me just put all these bits to one side. Okay, so as far as the base card goes, you're going to need two pieces that are 6 inches by 9. Now I've gone for something that's not that thick. This one is part of the Hobbycraft range. They did a whole load of paper pads, and they do different, so they do, this is the purples one, and they're 180 GSM, so they're not that thick, but for this card they will be fine. I'm also using the Butterfly Kisses range, so the decoupage and also the papers that go with it from Dovecraft, and I'm also using Miri card from Dovecraft. They did a tropical pack. I'll try and link everything below, so if you want to go and get it you can. I'm not sure what's available, what's not, so I'll try and link what I can. Okay, and you also need one piece that is, oh actually no, two pieces that are 3 inches by 9 inches. So on the two 6 by 9, you're going to put them in, and you're going to score each one at 1.5, at 3, at 6, and at 7.5. Okay, so that's one of them. We're going to do the same on this one. So those two pieces are done. We can put those to one side. We're then going to bring in the two pieces that are 3 inches by 9 inches. And on these, we're just going to score them at 3 inches and at 6 inches on both of them. Okay, so that's all of your scoring done. Okay, so if we bring the main pieces back in again, the 6 by 9, what you want to do is down your first score line and your last score line, you want to measure, and now I would go for an inch and a half, but just shy of an inch and a half. So if you literally come maybe a 1/16 up from an inch and a half, that's kind of what you want to do. So an inch and a half, and then just come up like a tiny, like a 1/16 and make a mark. Same on the bottom, an inch and a half, and then just come in. So you're just doing it about a 1/16 less than an inch and a half, okay? And the reason being is because you want your octagons to be able to move relatively freely on the inside. So again here, an inch and a half, and then just come in a tiny fraction. And the same from this side, an inch and a half, and come in a tiny fraction. So you should have gained, because you've come in like a 1/16, you should have gained about 1/8 of an inch in total. So hopefully that should be enough. Right, so then what we're going to do, and you want to do it on both pieces, but I'm actually going to do it on one piece and then use the measurements on the other one, I think that's what I'm going to do. So then what we're going to do is take our craft knife and ruler, and I'm going to cut between those two lines, between the two score lines. So I'm going to cut from this first score line, which I'm hoping you can see, all the way down till I reach the second score line there. Okay, and I'm going to do the same on the bottom. You should end up, if I don't let you can see the score lines, you should end up with that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to cut down here and down there, and we're actually going to cut this whole section out. So you should be left with this piece here, which is excess. You don't need that, but you could maybe use that for a cool card. I might have a go with that actually and see if I can use that. And then you're also left with this piece. This is the piece you're going to need for your card. So you're going to repeat the process on your other piece of card. You should be left with two pieces that look like that. Okay, so now what we want to do is, you can either fold and then decorate, or you can decorate then fold. I think I'm going to fold and then I'm going to decorate. So your first two score lines are going to be valley folds. Now when you're folding this, just make sure that you're getting it straight, because you've only got a little bit there. It's easy to go off pieced with it and end up with something that isn't straight. Your first one's a valley, your next one's a mountain. As I was saying, just make sure when you're doing them that you're just lining them up against the edge so that they're definitely folding properly. Because if they're not folding, if they're slightly off when you burnish, then you could end up with problems later with your card. Okay, and then the next one is a valley, and then we have a mountain to finish. You should end up with that. Now ignore my crease. For some reason I've got a little bit of a crease there, but I think because of the way I've just folded it, and obviously this isn't very strong paper card, I think that's why I've got that. And we're going to repeat the same thing on the other one. Okay, so you've just folded both of them, hopefully like that. So what you want to do with this right hand side, just turn that round so you've got the opposite. So you've got valley, then mountain, then valley, then mountain in the middle. And that's the piece it's going to be. We're going to be putting those together in a bit. So before we do that, what we're going to do is go ahead and add our mats and layers on. So you are going to need, I haven't done the middle bit for it yet, but everything else, you're going to need two mat pieces that are 1 1/4 by 5 3/4, and the patterns are 1 inch by 5 1/2. So you need two of those. You need, of these sort of rectangular pieces here, you need 4, and these, the mats are 1 1/4 by 2 3/4, and the pattern is 1 inch by 2 1/2. And then these little squares, you need 8 of these squares, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and you need they are 1 1/4 by 1 1/4 for the mat, and 1 inch by 1 inch for the pattern. So I'm going to go ahead now and stick all of my pieces down. So as you can see, I've got a mat and I've got a pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and stick all those pieces down now. Okay, so once you've stuck all your pieces down, you should end up with that. So next we're going to put this to one side, and next we're going to concentrate on the bit that goes in the middle, so the octagons. Okay, so let's put this to one side. Okay, so you've got your two pieces that are 3 by 9 and you've scored them. So what we're going to do is just going to go ahead and fold them. Now you're going to need them to be a mountain on the right and then a valley, and then the opposite on the other side, but you can just turn them around. So just fold mountain, valley, and then we can just sort out the logistics of it all after. And just make sure they're nicely lined up. Okay, so that's your two pieces ready to go. Now what we need to do before we start sticking mats and layers on, we need to cut these into octagons. So the easiest way to do this is to have them fully concertinaed up. So fold them flat like this, and then take your ruler and a pencil. So you're going to measure in from the left hand side 3/4 of an inch, and from the right hand side 3/4 of an inch. And then you're going to do the same basically on all four sides. So just keep turning it around and doing it 3/4 of an inch from either side. When you've done that, you won't be able to see my pencil marks, but I've got a 3/4 of an inch here, in here I've got a mark, 3/4 of an inch there I've got a mark, the same on all four sides. Then when you get your ruler, and you're going to join up these dots on the edges. Not sure if you can see, oh yeah, you can see my lines. If I do like that, you can see my lines. Okay, so you can see where I'm cutting the corners off. So now with a pair of scissors, you can go ahead and cut those corners off. And so you're left with a little string of octagons. Now, they might not be perfect octagons, but they will do. For sure they will do. All sizes aren't equal, I don't think. So this side here is like 1.5, and then that's like 1 1/8. So they're very different. They're not, you know, equal regular octagons, but for the purposes of the card, they will do. If you want to go ahead and make it perfect, you can. If you've got an octagon die that is 3 inches wide from here to here, then you can go ahead and put that on and just die cut it out. But this is another reason as well why you don't want to use thick card. So this is 180, and I could just about cut 3 layers with a pair of scissors. If you go much more than 180, you're going to really struggle. Also, incidentally, with the die, you will need to be a little bit careful because you don't want to cut your folded edge. So both of these edges here, you don't want to cut those. So they would need to be inside of your die. It's only this and this you really want to cut. So that's why I did it with scissors, not with a die. I have actually got an octagonal die. But to be honest, it doesn't really, you know, it doesn't matter too much. If I want to, I can cut that a little bit more. I could go ahead and cut that a little more. So maybe instead of 3/4, come in maybe 7/8 instead. And if you want to, if you're not happy, if you do that and you think, oh, I'm not happy with that, just take your ruler and just come in a little bit more all the way around. I'm going to stick with that just because I am. It'll do for the purposes. So then we're going to repeat the process on this one. So you should be left with 2 pieces that look like that. So then what we're going to do is we need to cut out the mats and the patterns for it. So you need in total 5 pieces of mat and 5 patterns. So your mats measure 2 3/4 by 2 3/4, and your patterns are 2.5 by 2.5. And what I would suggest you do, because I did try and measure it and work it out, is I suggest you just lay it on like that and then just cut round it. In fact, let me do it on the other side. So lay it on like that, so you've kind of got an even border, and then just using your ruler you can kind of work out where the border should be and just draw it on. Once you've done one, you're probably going to be the same for all of them, but I found this is the best way. I did try and measure them, but it didn't really work out that well. You might want as well add a bit of low tack tape just to keep it in place while you do it, so it doesn't move around like mine is. I've done the first one, and if I just measure that in, it is actually about 5/8 in from the left and 5/8 in from the right. 1 2 3 4 5, yeah, 5/8. So if you want to go ahead and just measure 5/8 in, you can. Yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stack a couple on top of each other I'm not going to manage more than that with this card because it's quite thick, because this is matte card. And I'm just going to cut a couple at the same time. Okay, so I've done a couple. Let's have a quick look and see. Ooh. You see this angle here is not quite right. I'm just going to turn it around, make sure, because it might be that one way it fits better than the other. Obviously, if you've got a die, an octagonal die, your work is far easier and you can just cut it all out. But the purpose of this was so that if you didn't have an octagonal die, you could still make the card. Okay, I'm going to have to correct this then, because that side is this side here is fine, this bit isn't, and it goes a bit off piece over here. So I'm going to go ahead now and just correct these up. Okay, so I've just gone off and refined that, and now that fits perfectly. So what I would do is if you haven't got a die and you're doing it by hand like I am, then just go ahead with each one and just kind of tailor it to fit. So I'm going to go ahead now and just finish off the rest of my octagons, and then I'm going to stick them down as I go. Otherwise I'm going to forget what goes where. Okay, so that's that one done. So now I'm going to go ahead and just finish off on this one, and I'll come back to you in a moment. So once you've done that, you should end up with both pieces with your mats on. Then you're going to need, oh, and by the way as well, I will have put a little caption up, but you need 6 mats, not 5. Okay, I don't know why I said 5. I don't know where my brain was at. You also need 6 pattern pieces, and these pieces are 2.5 by 2.5. And again, you want to go ahead, you can either do it manually by laying it on and working out where to cut the corners off, or you can cut, it's about half an inch in, half an inch in, all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead now and finish off cutting the ones I've got and then stick them all down. Okay, so you should end up with that. So 2 pieces, they're all fully decorated. Now you might notice some of mine are shocking, like this corner here is really bad. Obviously, if you've got a die, it makes it a lot easier. This is why people buy dies. This is why people make dies. But as I said, not all of us have dies. Not everyone can afford to buy dies. So if you can't, this is your option. But you do get a neater finish with the die, obviously. Right, so if we bring our main piece back in again. Now, one piece we need to do, which we still haven't done, and that's this centerpiece here. So you need a piece of base card that is 3 inches. Let me just check that's right. Yeah, 3 inches by 6 inches. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're literally going to put these two together and stick it over the top, and it's going to cover up that join, and it just means then we've got the full double display. Okay, so here's my matte piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and glue that onto there. Now make sure obviously that you've got it opposite, so before you stick it down, make sure you've got it, so you've got valley, then mountain, then valley, then mountain in the middle, so you've got it the right around. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick this down now, and I think probably the best way to do it is to stick one side. So I'm going to stick this side here, and then I'm going to flip it over, make sure the 2 edges are nudged up to each other, and then stick the other side on. So stick that on there, and then I'm going to turn this over like that, add some glue on this side, and for this you need red tape or a strong liquid glue. And then I'm actually going to let me just flip that over like that, just to make sure it's not going over that join there. And also you can make sure it's in line if you do this like this and flip that back. There we go, and then just turn it back over. Okay, so that's that piece. So now you need a piece of matte card, and this is 2 3/4 by 5 3/4, and that's going to go in the middle there. And Then you need a pattern piece that is 2.5 by 5.5, and that's going to go in on top of the mat. Okay, so that's your card. So what will happen then, when you fold it up, it should all fold up like that. Now that height is 6 inches, and the width, mine is literally an eighth, a 16th over, or a tenth over 6 inches, but it should fit in an envelope for a 6x6 card. Okay, so now we need to go on and add our octagons on. So for the left hand side, you want it to be valley and then mountain, and what we're going to do is we're just literally going to put this on. If we lay it flat like this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stick it on. You just want to make sure you've got a little bit of clearance top and bottom, which is why we cut that little tiny bit less on top and bottom, so you've got it so it clears, and you want to make sure that it's straight. So I'm going to go ahead now, I'm just going to quickly flip this over like this, and then I'm going to add a little bit of glue. I could use red tape, either red tape or glue. In fact, I think I might use red tape, just because I want it to stick straight away. So I'm going to add a little bit of red tape onto, I might use a bit of both actually. So I don't want any other gluey tapiness on this side. I literally just want, I'm going to peel this off actually. I literally just want it to be in that place there. Now you should notice that this score line should then line up with this score line. So these 3 score lines should all line up with each other. Okay, so that's that one done. Now I think probably the easiest way of sticking the next bit is to fold this down like that. Fold that down like that, and then just stick that down on there. I think that might be the easiest bit, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a little pencil line, and I'm going to put the glue or tape onto the actual base card rather than the underside. So I've just got a little bit of a thing there so I know where everything is. So I'm going to go ahead now and stick this down. Now because I want it to fold flat, that's why I'm doing it this way. I'm sticking it this way and I'm not sticking it flat. Because it doesn't matter if it doesn't open up completely flat, because you're never going to display it completely flat. You're always going to display it slightly, you know, at an angle. So I'm going to go ahead and stick that on like that. Okay. So you should end up with that on that side. So now we're going to do the other side. So you want to bring your butterflies in, and you want to make sure you've got, it's coming from the left to the right, a mountain and then a valley. So we're going to make sure that's a mountain and a valley, and then that is going to do exactly the same again. It's going to stick there and stick down on there like that. And again, you want to make sure that you've got enough clearance top and bottom. It should kind of all line up. I'm actually going to start at this end, I think, and work my way that way. So I'm just going to draw around here. Okay, so I'm now going to take this. This is all loose, obviously. Just going to bring this over. Make sure we've got the clearance top and bottom. I'm also looking to make sure that this folded edge here doesn't go over the edge of my card. So once I'm happy it's completely where it needs to be, it's straight, everything's where it should be, I can go ahead and stick it down. And then we're going to do the same with this side. So I'm just going to hold this down here, open this up, and then just draw around this bit. See? Okay, so let's concertina it shut again, just to make sure it's definitely going to fold flat when posted. Right, so there we go. Let's get that in. Let that dry. And so there, when you open it up, there's your double display octagonal shutter card. Hopefully you can see that. So now all we need to do is put a greeting or a sentiment in the middle, and then add any other decorations that we want. Okay, so I've got the especially for you, so I think it's quite nice. I know it's a hexagon, these are octagons, but actually it works quite well. So I'm going to go ahead now. I've added a few pads on the back and I've laid it up a little bit. I've just used the hunky-dory, the flat hunky-dory pads that aren't very thick, just for the front, because I don't want to add too much bulk, but I do want a little bit of you know, pop. I want it to pop a little bit. So, so I'm going to go ahead and stick this down. Go. So there's your finished card, and obviously you could add more if you wanted to. You could add less, whatever. And then all you need to do on the back is where this join is here. If you had a piece of white card there, and that's where you can write. Yeah, and it folds down flat. This will fit in an envelope for a 6x6 card. But yeah, so there you go. So it just proves you don't need dies. So I didn't use a single die for any of this. And you can make yourself an octagonal card. It is a lot easier if you use a die. I am not going to pretend it's not. It's a lot easier if you use a die, but it is possible if you don't. So there you go. So that's the whole thing. Obviously, you've put it all out. And also, the other thing as well to note is, if you wanted to, you don't have to use octagons. You could do squares. So these could obviously be, you could have like, I mean, obviously squares would be one long strip, wouldn't it? But you can kind of make them a bit more, you know, you could use hexagons, you could use circles, you could do ovals. Whatever you do, you just have to make sure that where you've got this edge here and you've got the fold line, just make sure you don't cut around it. So if you're using a circle on that edge, it would just have to be slightly flat on that edge, and the same here. So just make sure whatever shape you're using, make sure that it's you know, it's fine. If you're using a hexagon, because I did look at using a hexagon actually, you just have to make sure that your pointy bit, so these flat bits, you wouldn't have top and bottom. You'd have them left and right, and your pointy bits would be at the top. That would probably be the best way to do a hexagon. Okay, so yeah, but I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. And we will see you next time. Bye.